Erasure card tactics. I play Eddie the dog. You've activated my Niles card.
You've activated my Niles card. Typically in the afternoon, I take a power nap. Like I've become a power napper recently.
Oh, I love that. I love that for you. I love that for anybody. I love power napping.
It's really good. And I thought I used to not be able to do it. Like I used to be the kind of dude who needs like a multi-long hour nap. And the only time I would nap is when it's like an emergency sleep. Like I am so...
It's just an emergency nap.
Somebody slapped the emergency ripcord and like put me to bed.
There's just a blanket and a like glass case on the wall. You just have to break it.
Break in case of sleepies.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
No, yeah. But something that's come up recently is, I'm doing a little power napping, which has been really helpful for me because it just keeps my brain alive during the latter half of the evening, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's like a 30-minute ordeal usually. But something that I've realized is that my dreams during these power naps are fucking crazy.
Ooh.
Just absolutely bananas because my brain is still pretty on for the most part. Yeah, I'm creative. I'm still thinking. And the one I had today was that you and I made a line of fragrances. And the point of them was that they had one initial smell, but they eventually, throughout the day, it would decay into the second smell.
Double smell candle?
No, it's like a cologne. Like you would put on a cologne. And like at the beginning of the day, it would smell like one thing. And by the end of it, it would smell like another.
Wow.
And we named the line The Reveal, which felt so powerful.
That is really good, though.
I know. Yeah. Like
The Reveal.
In the dream, we were like, should we call it The Prestige? And then we were like, no, like that's going to get confused with the movie. So we need to call it The Reveal instead. And so like during the morning, it might smell like pine, but by evening, now it's hot dog scent, you know?
Hot dog scent?
Yeah.
Man, I mean, it's patent pending. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah.
We're doing
you're
this.
Calling this shot. The reveal is a real thing.
I mean, of course, like when you go to work, you want to just smell like clean shaven aftershave.
Yeah.
Dude,
I want to smell professional.
But then once 5 o'clock hits, I want to smell like, I don't know, a smoking room.
Yeah. I want to smell like a stinky 5 o'clock guy, you know?
I want to smell worse by the end of the day. Even worse than I typically smell worse by the end of the day.
Sort of the natural course of nature during the day, but like in a different kind of prestige kind of way, you know?
So it like instead it gives you the odor, like a nice odor at first, and then it just enhances your natural odor at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's like the half-life is such that it decays into smelling like another thing.
Whoa.
Welcome to Video Game Podtimism. It's the Optimist video game variety show where two best friends talk about the wonderful world of gaming. My name is Chase.
And my name is David.
The Reveal.
The Reveal.
Coming to a Target near you.
Definitely is a Target fragrance.
Yeah. There's a lot of video games out right now. There's a lot of video game, I should say.
Yeah, there's one that's dominating right now, it seems.
Yeah. Is that the main thing you're going to talk about today?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I've got one other that I think I would love to talk about before we dive headlong into Elden Ring again.
Sure, yeah.
So, hey, it's me. I'm going to talk about the games now.
Go for it.
So the only other game that I wanted to talk about other than Shadow of the Erdtree, which we will in a moment, is this game called Still Wakes the Deep.
Oh.
This is a
So is this on Game Pass?
Yeah. This is on Game Pass. This is a fairly recent release on Game Pass. It is made by this company called The Chinese Room, which they have made Dear Esther, Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, and Everybody's Gone to Rapture. So like you've probably played some of their games before if you're into kind of the quote unquote walking
spooky
simulator
games.
genre. Yeah. And I think definitely a focus on some amount of horror. I think Dear Esther is scary, but not necessarily as bad as Amnesia, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But this company has a focus on kind of scary games, or at least playing with expectation in the way that horror does. And I had heard about this just on the internet. People were saying like, hey, it's pretty good. It's pretty scary. It is. Yeah, they just said it was very moody. And like the art of it looks interesting. It's on a like oil rig in the North Sea up near, you know, the Scotland and all that shit. And so I was like, I think I'm interested in this. So, and I was just hearing some buzz around like, hey, it's a pretty good horror game. So I downloaded it and gave it a look. So this is an interesting game. I think there's a lot that I like about it, but it also comes with like some caveats that I think are going to apply to each person's taste a little bit differently.
Sure.
So this is a horror game, so that already is kind of a barrier to entry for some. And I would say that it has fairly light levels of interaction that you can do with the game. You are definitely controlling, what's his name, Kaz? Kaz. And you are walking around and like looking, like it's a first person game and it controls like one. But largely there is usually like one direction you're supposed to walk or one thing you're supposed to do in any given moment. And so like, as far as just like decision making goes, it's usually pretty clear what you need to do. But I also like, just to not bury the lead, I think that that's okay for this game. You and I have been toying around with like visual novels and shit like that. And both garnering kind of an appreciation for that genre. And I think that like on the scale of this and Resident Evil, like Resident Evil is a much more like kind of actiony, decision-making, not provoking, but like you have to think about the puzzles kind of. They're usually pretty obvious, but you know, it's to the point where like, oh, I just got this key. Where have I seen that door before or something like that?
Yeah.
Whereas like this one doesn't have that. Yeah, a maze, anything like that. Whereas this one is not that game. It's mostly just like kind of follow the indicators for where you're supposed to go and do the thing that you need to do. But I think that the game's focus is not on mechanical exploration, is much more in like atmosphere and the story that it's telling and the tone that it's setting.
Sure.
Just to give like a little bit of background, you are playing as this guy named Kaz, who in the intro, it sort of gives you this letter that he has been written from his wife, who says essentially like, hey, you need to figure out the trouble that you're in or I'm leaving you essentially, and I'm taking the kids. He is already on this oil rig in the North Sea, and the game sort of like doesn't tell you outright immediately, but eventually you come to find out pretty early on that like Kaz got into trouble with the law in his hometown, and essentially was like, I'm going to take this job from my friend Roy, who like already works there, and I'm just going to go work on this oil rig until the heat kind of dies down a little bit. His wife has interpreted that as like running from the problem, essentially. I think he like got in a fight with a police person that had like insulted his wife or something like that. And so, but point being, he's like, I'm going to just go out there and hopefully work until it like chills out a little bit. This is also takes place in 1975. So like, you know, that's a possibility, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not 2024 where it's like, just look at where his cell phone is and that's where he is. It's like, you know, he could conceivably kind of fall off the map a little bit. But, you know, one of the first thing that happens is that the supervisor of this place, who is like just a total shithead, calls him up and is like, you know, I got this letter from the police. Like, you can't work here anymore, dude. You have to go home.
Damn.
Almost simultaneously, something that happens is that they are drilling, and in the background, you hear this because you're in the supervisor's office, and they're like, "Hey, we're drilling into something weird. We think we should stop." And he's like, "No, we have to keep the oil rig running. Just push through. You have a big fucking drill. Just use it." They do that, and like, shit breaks bad almost immediately. There's some kind of explosion on the rig, and some fucky stuff starts happening.
Some fucky stuff
to the people on the rig.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, so I think like, you know, going any farther, and that's kind of getting into the story stuff, but like to just give you a little bit of a preview, you know, it's very body horror stuff happening. The game is very explicitly says that it is inspired by The Thing, the John Carpenter movie.
Sure.
And so like there is a lot of just like horrific human body shit that happens in this game.
Yeah.
And in a way that I think is pretty fun. Like it's brutal, but you know, it's a video game, so it's not it's not real. Breaking news. Video games are not real.
What?
You heard it here first. But yeah, so essentially the next couple of levels are essentially just you as Kaz like trying to navigate this rig that is, you know, at some parts falling apart. There are other areas where it's like being flooded, and you have to like run away from these creatures that have become manifest from this thing that they hit while they're drilling. I think it's also like they don't say this explicitly sort of in the interviews about this game, but I think it also feels kind of a similar shade of like Alien in the same way, where there is a very like money driven reason why some people have suddenly discovered an ancient horrible thing.
Yeah.
Now they're having to deal with the fallout of that.
And it ain't working out.
Yeah. You know, an alien, it's the xenomorph that they suddenly stumble upon and fucks everybody up except Ripley. Go Ripley. But in this one, it's sort of something else. And I don't know, I appreciate the tactic that they've taken with how to approach what the thing is that they've hit underneath the ground. Because like Kaz is an oil rig guy, you know, he like is not somebody who's like a scientist who is suddenly going to try and figure out like, what is this thing that we've unearthed down here?
Yeah. It's like, nah, just drill go burr.
Kaz is just like, I would like to not die. How do I like get out of any given situation that I'm in? You know, everybody's also extremely Scottish, and which is, it's in some ways I really like it because it is making references to and sort of steeped in like Gaelic culture in a way that I just don't really see a lot of other video games. That's, you know, cool. Like it's neat, right? Like the oil rig that the oil rig that you're on is named I think it's called Biera, the Biera D. And Biera is this like Gaelic mythical god that's like associated with like the creation of landscapes and winter and storms and shit like that. And is seemingly much older than the other gods too, which is like kind of adding to the whole, like maybe Lovecraftian, we have stumbled onto something older than us kind of deal, you know?
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that there's that approach, but it's also just like very funny that they had to do like subtitles for this game, and the shit that is coming out of their mouths is like not what the subtitles are, you know? Not in a way where it's like, I don't understand their accent, but just genuinely like turns of phrases that they're using that are not the actual words that are displayed down there. And so it's kind of funny to see like, oh, that's, you know, that must be slang or shorthand for, you know, this, that, or the other thing. So that's all really cool. But it's also just like funny to, you know, be experiencing this and like, I'm experiencing horrors worse than I can possibly imagine. My brain's going to warp just from the sheer horrors. Like that stuff is all very fun to experience from, you know, not just a standard American outlook.
Yeah, American accent horror, passe. Give me a Scottish accent in horror.
Good, yeah, different. So all of that's very good. And like I was saying about the alien connection, I think that there is that movie and this game definitely have a like blue collar tone to them of like, these are just working people who are having to bear the brunt of like decisions that they did not get to make, you know? And I like that. I think that that's a not fun, but effective storytelling device of like, here are these people who are just like regular people who are, you know, at the whims of much larger decision-making devices than them. It's very alien. It's also kind of the thing too. And I feel like you saw those kinds of stories being told a little bit more in like the 80s and especially 80s horror of just like, here's a group of people that have come into a bad situation, you know?
Tremors.
And like even in Alien, which is, you know, they're like spacefaring people. They're still just like miners and shit like that, you know? Like people who don't necessarily like, they're not studied up in this shit. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I like that. I think that there's a cool approach to everything there. So yeah, I think to get back to the kind of mechanical stuff here, it's just not that complicated, and I think that that's fine. Like, the game is like 4 hours ish, so it's not very long. And so I feel like I didn't have the time to really like think about like, God, this is too simple, or like, you know, I'm bored or anything like that. Because most of what I'm there for is like, what is happening? What is this thing that they've drilled into?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to these people? And how scary is the game, right?
Yeah. Show me some scary things.
Show me some scary things. And they do, right? Like there's some pretty horrifying shit in here. And like the monsters are all pretty spooky. They also just added like a diabolical button in this game. It is the look behind you button, which is just so scary. If you like
don't want to look behind me.
Oh my God. If you press S or R3 while you're running, you will look behind you while continuing to run in the same direction.
Like over your shoulder?
Over your shoulder. Like it's not like you have to turn around completely. You can just kind of like peek back there to see what's going on. And it is so frightening. So scary to see just like some shambling horror like through the dark
out of the
shadows.
Corner of your eye.
Yes, yeah. Because you know, it is effective because sometimes you're having to like move very quickly through these areas. And the game is definitely like controlling your pace some of the time of like, you know, there's not a ton of situations where I'm like, I didn't have the ability to get through there because like I didn't press a button well enough. It's like, it is controlling your speed pretty specifically. So I don't feel like it's ever a like skill check. It's more just like, wow, that was a very frightening moment that they built up to very well, right? And I like that. I think that's a pretty effective way to instill horror without like really pulling back the curtain and saying like, you know, how much danger are you really in here? How much control do you really have? Because like, I would say like probably not that much. There are sections where it's like you have to kind of decide like when to move and like to throw something to kind of get somebody's attention or something like that. And so like there are moments where you have to be a little bit more strategic, but in the moments where you're just running from something, the horror isn't from the fact that like I need to do well enough to not get caught. It's the horror is from the music and the looking behind you and seeing the horrible thing of like, oh my God, what is that even?
Yeah.
And, you know, just the graphics of it all. It also looks amazing. I haven't mentioned that yet, but like visual fidelity is bananas. It's really taking advantage of like I played it on Xbox One. It's really taking advantage of that in a way that, you know, I just haven't seen very much. So I think it's really cool and adds to the spookiness of it because it does feel very real.
Do you say that you like this type of horror game more than like a Resident Evil type of horror game, which does give you a lot of like power to enact things on the world, right?
Yeah, I don't know. They feel like very different genres almost. I know that they're the same thing, but they're going for a similar feeling. But yeah, one gives you a fair amount of power. Like Resident Evil is constantly trying to ride the line between powerful and powerless. Yeah. And they kind of tilt you or tip you over that edge pretty regularly with like, do you have enough bullets? We're going to throw some more people at you. And like, some of them might be stronger than you're used to, but maybe you went out of your way to go find this secret. So maybe you're a little overpowered or anything like that. Right.
Yeah.
There's this delicate balance that they're trying to find. Whereas this game is mostly trying to not give you that and hide the places where you think that you might actually be actually powerless or actually powerful. Right. It is mostly trying to convince you of the fact that you are totally powerless all the time. That is a thing that is true about you. You never get a weapon in this game. Like it's not like you're fighting back against anything. You're almost entirely just running.
Sure.
And so I don't know. I don't know which one really works for me better. I think like in the long run, I would play a game like Resident Evil for longer because it is, I think it is fun to kind of experience that power imbalance and then the power coming back to you, you know, of like the kind of seesaw of getting a new gun, feeling very powerful, and then them throwing you a big horrible monster and then having to deal with that or whatever. But for small experiences like this, I think it's pretty effective to try to hide a lot of that, to gloss over it and just make you feel like I am a person trying to escape from this place.
Yeah.
I think that works really well for building tension in the short term. And so like, it almost feels like they're very different things and they're going for different stuff. So I don't know, but I think this game uses it to a pretty good effect, which I like. Yeah, I think just like the only other thing to mention is I like the story that it's telling. Oh, I think, by the end of it, without really spoiling anything here, I think it tells the story that it wants to, and it tells it pretty well. It's not exactly the same thing, but it reminded me a little bit of Returnal in the way that like sometimes in Returnal there are these kind of flashbacks or areas that you go to that are sort of out of time almost. And this one does kind of similar stuff. And again, I think that it is being used in a way that isn't the same as Returnal. Returnal is kind of like trying to blur the lines between like, is this actually happening? Is this a flashback? Are you actually even here kind of stuff, like that sort of stuff. But
sure,
in this one, it's definitely more of a flashback sort of deal. But I appreciate that they are like grounding Kaz's experience in real world shit, right? Like a lot of the times you will go from like just horrific stuff happening on the rig to here is a flashback to him and his wife arguing about him going on the rig in the first place, right? Or right after he got in a fight with somebody in their hometown and, what's the fallout of that? And so I think like, even though it is some of the material of this game is kind of pulpy horror, I think that they are grounding it in this story of a person who is running from his problems, And I think notably most of the mechanical stuff that you do in this game is running and hiding. And so I think that there's a cool connection between the narrative and the story and also kind of the very last thing you do as well. And I always really appreciate that. Like, even if it's not like the most hard hitting shit ever, I do think it's cool that they are able to connect it in that way. And makes me just kind of like hang on to the game for a little longer. It makes me kind of recontextualize the play that I had with it into something that is more interesting and like just kind of more tangible to me. So I think that they like did a really great job there. Also, I just like have to note that I see a lot of Annihilation, the movie and the book series, but more the visual influence of that movie in this game. Like the design of this like thing that's kind of taking over the rig has a lot of the similar kind of color effects that they had in Annihilation, where it's like this sort of like shimmering, almost metallic-y rainbow thing that
polychrome.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the dome that's in Annihilation that's kind of expanding. Yeah. Whereas in this one, it's sort of this effect that they put over this like stuff that's on the rig. And I just really like that. I think visually it's kind of a nice nod to that work. And I mean, Annihilation is the same stuff, right? Like this kind of horrific place. And I think that there is a connection just in kind of the visual terror at the end, the last third act of Annihilation there too, which is like not gory by any means, but just like so scary. And I think that they're probably trying to hit a similar note with some of the stuff going on in this game. So I just really appreciated the connection there, because I also I really liked the book and I fucking loved the movie. I thought it was so good and so frightening. I saw that alone, and that was maybe a bad decision in the theaters, because I was just like the whole third act, I'm like, oh my God, I can't handle this fucking movie. So yeah. And then the final thing I wanted to mention about it was that they have this like hint system that works really, really well for me. You and I were talking about this last week of like, what is the balance between Atreus screaming the answer to the puzzle to you the moment you arrive at the location and not knowing what the hell to do in the game, making no suggestion of what to do. This game definitely, like the visual design of it is like, hey, here's a yellow thing over here, you should go this way. But they also implemented this thing that I really, really like, which is if you press left on the D-pad, it will show you what your objective is. Like, I need to go to the bridge or whatever. If you press left again after having just hit it, it will also give you kind of a more detailed version of what that objective is, right? So it's like, go to the bridge. And then if you hit it again, it's like, take the stairs from where you are to go up to the bridge or something like that, which I really, really like. And they usually also give you like a mission marker to be like, go over in this direction or whatever. I think that that's like weirdly a pretty simple and pretty good solve for the situations where I'm like, I actually don't know what to do in here quite yet. Because I think the game really runs on momentum. And if you suddenly run out of that, it's like, oh God, I'm stuck here and I might drop it just because like, you know, the game is fairly simplistic in a lot of spots. And so it's like, I don't really know what to do. And so I think that that's a really good and smart way to do it without just totally like saying, here's all the map markers, here's exactly what you need to do. Like the player can opt into that if they want to. And if you don't, like, fuck, don't use it, right? Like don't use it. Yeah. It's very easy to have a kind of flexible relationship with that system, because you don't have to go into the options and say like, yes, I always want the easy hints on. You just press a button if you're ever lost, and it's like, here you go. Here's what
that's great.
Yeah, it's really good. And definitely used it a couple times when I was like either not paying enough attention to the thing that just happened where they're giving me instructions on what to do, or, you know, I'm just lost or looking in the wrong direction or something. And it's like, over here, you're fine.
Yeah. It's like flagging down the person who's watching you in an escape room. Be like, can I have a hint, please?
You just give me a little bit here.
Yeah.
Same deal. Yeah. But it's quick and you don't have to like opt out of it or anything. It's just, you know, eventually goes away and you do the next thing, which is great. I think it allows you to immerse yourself when you want to. And then if the game is not giving you enough, you can just kind of pop out of that and be like, what am I doing? And then it points you in the right direction. So I thought that was really smart. And like, I think that would solve a lot of people's problems with that system, right? Of if you just hit a button to tell Atreus, like, can you help me a little bit? Or, you know, have Aloy suddenly start talking to no one to explain the puzzle that you're looking at. Like, sure, that's great. Because then,
do you want Aloy to mutter to herself?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I thought that was really good. So all in all, I think a really interesting game. If you're interested in any of that, it's worth a play. If you have Game Pass, like, it's right there. I've seen some complaints about it just because it is fairly simplistic, but I think if you're somebody who enjoys horror, like, this is a good one of those, and it's worth a look. So yeah, that is Still Wakes the Deep. You want to talk about Elden Ring some more?
I'm going to go put my arborist hat on for a bit.
It's time to hang out with a tree.
Many trees.
Many trees. Tell me about your trees.
My trees are so good.
Yeah.
I love my trees. This is great.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Erdtree DLC for Elden Ring.
Yep.
It's here. It is more of a good thing. It is it's huge, it's massive. There's such great new characters and bosses in it. It's just It's fantastic. It really is.
Yeah.
Feels more like a 1.5 or like a continuation of the game as opposed to just like a DLC, which is usually just kind of a little add-on, a little couple things here or there.
Mm-hmm.
This is like Elden Ring Part 2.
Yes, yeah. Or like 1.5. Like it's not as big as the full version of Elden Ring, but like not that far, right? Like I've heard descriptions that like, it's probably 20-30% of the normal map or whatever, and so like that's gigantic still. That's so much game.
It's a lot. The map was huge.
Yeah.
In Elden Ring.
Yeah, so tell me about your experience like playing through this. How you like, did you already have a character? Did you do your homework that was ready to go to the Shadow Lands or whatever?
I've never gone back into a FromSoft game after not having played it for a while. So there was part of me that was very nervous. Yeah. And then I was watching the trailers for the game and I'm like, I am not ready. I am not prepared. Those guys look so scary and strong. I'm gonna feel bad about myself because I'm not gonna know how to Elden Ring anymore.
Yeah.
Then I loaded my character back up and I found him butt ass naked in the middle of a field somewhere. I'm like, what the fuck was I doing?
It's the canonical Elden Ring experience of just like, what happened here?
Where did my clothes go? Why do I just have like a single hammer that I'm using? I guess I was just messing around, going around using America's hammer to just like blow people up on the snowy mountain of the giants.
You need like a Vatia video to explain your own lore about why you were there in the first place.
Yes, there's a reason probably. But no, then I did my homework, warped over to Mohgwyn Dynasty Palace.
Yep.
And equipped all my best equipment and went on in. I feel like I've seen a lot of discourse online about it being too hard.
Yeah.
I have not had that experience so far because this character I had was very leveled. I think I started off at 180.
Okay, yeah, you're pretty high up there.
So I was doing just fine, but I could see where people would say that because some of these just base enemies, all of a sudden I'm just like, I got hit twice and like 3/4 of my health is gone and I have to run away and it was just like a bird. I'm like, what is happening right now? And I'm wearing some like hefty armor too.
Yeah. Two things. One, like it should be hard. It should be pretty hard.
Yeah.
It should be pretty hard. I don't like. Yeah. I would actually kind of be bummed out if this game was easy or if this DLC was easy, because like part of the fun of these games is the difficulty, and like you are entering into what is ostensibly like another end game. Like this is kind of like another version of the end of the game here. Yeah, and so like it should be hard. I think it should be challenging, but also like. This shouldn't be a surprise because the other FromSoft DLCs are also so fucking hard.
So like, hard.
The two that come to mind are the DLC for Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. The Old Hunter specifically for Bloodborne is like, that's really tough. That DLC is really, really challenging. And so like, I think this is just kind of their MO is like, well, for all you real freaks who like got here and really want more Elden Ring, here you go. Here's something that will satiate you.
Get ready for some punishment.
But they also like work around it enough with these, God, what are they called? The
Scottitree
fragments. Yeah, it's like essentially just these items that they litter across the map where
Scottitree toilet.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's the hottest new craze for Gen Alpha of last year or whatever. But it's like these things that you collect, and they will essentially give you buffs that only work in the shadow
realm.
Yeah. I don't see a lot of the numbers that it's working on, but I think my understanding is that it just lets you do more damage and lets you take more damage as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really smart because it kind of like flattens the need to be super high level, while also just kind of like letting this place exist in its own almost leveling system, right? Of the people that are hard will probably be hard for most people until you get enough of these fragments, and at which point it's like more manageable.
Yeah, I think it really encourages you to explore.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's asking you like, come get more stuff. It's not exactly the same thing, but similar to Breath of the Wild, where you go find the Koroks and you get more item equipment slots or whatever. So I think it's a really smart way to like kind of flatten the abilities of everybody coming in. Like everybody should be kind of getting their ass kicked at the beginning.
Everyone get in here and get your ass kicked. Miyazaki demands it.
Where did you go initially? Like what route are you taking through this area?
Let's see. The first place I went to that first grace to the road in front of you. Yeah. Got my ass handed to me by that monk.
Yeah, the spinning boy.
The spinny boy. Man, that was rough. And then I went through the big archway around the giant cauldron that just kicked my whole ass. Man. I was like I was hitting it, got my mimic tier out, and I was looking at how much damage I did. It was like none. Zero damage. I had whacked it like 10 or 15 times. I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. No. And I'm trying to run away, and then just kicks molten rocks at me, and I die just immediately. I'm like, man, that is fucked up. But I went to that big castle first.
The one kind of straight ahead.
Yeah, the one that goes up to, I guess, where you have to go at the end to get to Miquella.
Yes, yeah. It's worth noting for all the lore heads, most of this DLC is focused around Miquella.
Brother of Melania.
Right, yeah. Which is very cool. I have gotten not very far in as far as like the story goes yet. I'm kind of just wandering around still. Mm-hmm. But neat that they're kind of filling out that backstory, because whenever I was watching any Vatia video or anything online about like the lore of these places, I was like, that's a pretty important character that they simply don't have in this video game, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's cool that they're covering Miquella in sort of more in-depth way.
Seems like he could end up being one of the more important characters in the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's also like people were kind of unclear before this came out. Like, is this a prequel? Is this after? And they're like, no, this is happening like simultaneously. Like you literally are traveling from one place to another. Like you're not going back in time or anything. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that will get answered of like how until somebody, digs into the item descriptions to tell me why.
I need Vati Vidya to do his homework.
Yes, yeah.
Tell me what to think.
I will say, like, I am enjoying the game even really without getting every bit of story, like most other FromSoft games.
It adds a lot of pizzazz, and it makes it feel like a lived world, like most other FromSoft games. Do I understand what's going on? No. I just know that Miquella has been going around leaving bits of his body, and then when he leaves his body there, a giant holy cross comes out, and you have to find him.
Yes. Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I have no idea.
Nothing's really happening when I find those crosses. I just interact with other weirdos who are trying to follow the crosses.
All I know is I got to find kindly Miquella and help get him to the gate of divinity.
Something.
Praise the research.
Yeah, praise the research. It's fun without a lot of that stuff, and I think that that's fine. Mm-hmm. It is in line with most other FromSoft games in that I barely am grasping what's going on, and that's okay. The tone and the atmosphere do a lot for this game, and I think that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate how distinct the landscape is immediately when you get there. It is so clearly a different place without that it's going to be different because you're like traveling there by touching the arm of Big Eggman.
Dr. Eggman?
You touch the arm of Dr. Eggman and he takes you into Green Hill Zone, which is actually the Shadow Realm or whatever. But like the place that you arrive at is just so open and vast immediately that it like really, I think, sets itself apart from most of the other locations in Elden Ring. Like, you definitely got a sense of scale from most of the places in Elden Ring, but I think that this one's kind of on another level. I was almost like, oh my God, where do I even go? Like, this is too big initially, but obviously, there's that first little town that's probably a pretty great place to start. And then off to the left, there's the real shithead guy who has the crossbow and the big sword. Can't remember his name, but the internet's falling apart because he's kicking everybody's ass.
The dark jail knight or whatever it is.
Yeah. Uh-huh. He has like a fucking like switch on his crossbow that turns it into an automatic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just like visually it's so cool and sets itself apart immediately, especially with like I guess it's the Erdtree. I don't know what it is, but
the Scotta tree. Yes. The shadow of the Erdtree, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Is it a different tree? Is it just the butt of the Erdtree? I don't know.
Yeah, are these the roots? I don't know. But the design of it is so cool. I love how it looks like there's like a sheet draped over it.
Yeah,
that's so
cool. It's all shadowed.
God, that's so good.
Just makes it feel like some god came over and was just like, I'm just going to hide this little bit of the world.
Yeah. God, that is so good. Mm-hmm. So all of that's really amazing. The big cauldron boys are really good.
So spooky.
Just lumbering giants. The design of the kind of like hands being the like things that keep the coals in its head are just God. Nobody does it like FromSoft, man. This shit's so good.
I was about to say, like, FromSoft, there are so many different departments of that company to laud. But honestly, like, one of the unsung heroes, I think, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself calling them unsung, is the art direction is so good, not just in like making cool enemies, but in just making a visually engaging world that not only is good to look at, but gives you so much information about where you want to go, what you want to do, how they strategically place interesting landmarks in the distance from where you are. Like you go around a mountain, you're like, oh, I've never seen that mausoleum over there. Got to go check it out. Oh, there's a big giant archway over here. I guess I should go through that and see what's there. Oh, there's this like a really important place that I have to be through here. This is great. Yeah. So it's so good at just letting your eyes wander and like guiding you to the key places and just making that clear it's so impressive that they're able to do that.
It's really great. It's very cool. I can't believe that they're able to do it at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wild. You also just like immediately know like I'm playing a FromSoft game when you see some of these enemies, you know?
Yeah.
The big walking cauldron with fire in it, like there's no other game that I could play that in, you know? Or no other game creator, I guess, because like maybe they're in Bloodborne or something, but like that's just, it's so specific to them.
Yeah. So it's just like, does it have a face? What is it? Who made it?
Yeah.
How do I kill it? What the fuck is going on here?
What is its duty here? Because there also seems to be multiple of them. Like I've seen other ones wandering around. I'm like, do they protect this place? Like what is their deal?
Because you can see one there on that big plain in the beginning, and then if you go around, there's like to like a little cliff. You see another one down there. You can see another one off in the distance. You're just like, what? There's so many of these big boys.
Yes, it's very, very cool.
And just like when you aggro one, you just hear like their steps in the background for so long, and they're just the scariest sounding steps.
It's
ominous.
Very like It Follows of them to just like they will really chase after you for a long time.
They will lumber. Oh man, I forgot where I was, but I found one, and I was trying to hide behind some structures, and then he does his AoE attack, and it just destroys every single structure around me. I'm like, I didn't know you could destroy those. Yeah. It just decimated the place. I was like, oh my God, the destructive power. So
it's really good. I love those kind of emergent moments that they build in there. If just like, no, nothing said that, but you feel the power when something like that happens.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about like what are like sort of the best DLCs that I've played over the course of my time playing games. The ones that kind of came to mind off the dome were like definitely the Old Hunters, the Bloodborne DLC.
Yeah.
I think it's just amazing and like adds so much to it. The Ringed City in Dark Souls 3 was also like really, really good. But Oblivion, the Shivering Isles DLC that they did with like all the sort of like not Outland, but the weird realm of the gods that you go to.
Yeah.
That's all really, really good. Blood and Wine, the DLC
that one's really good.
The Witcher 3, Phantom Liberty, the Cyberpunk DLC that came out last year, I was like really, really impressed with. And then Minerva's Den too, the DLC for BioShock 2. I think that like all of those are really incredible. And when I was trying to think about like what about those stands out, and I think that this game also has it, which is it is additive in a way. Like there is a lot more, and not just like volume wise, but like different ideas, different concepts, different places. And they also usually take a pretty heavy visual swing design wise. Like that is so clear. Like I am not playing the base version of Elden Ring or, you know, Oblivion or Cyberpunk or anything like that. Like the visual language here is slightly different to the point where it feels like, wow, I'm in a new place. I'm doing new stuff. And I think that this one's just like right up there with them in the way that it has so smartly designed the leveling system, how wildly expansive it is, the brand new places that they're going to that also tie into like very big questions about the lore. That it's just like I can't believe that they have put this out. It's just so large in its scale and definitely additive in the way of like there's so many new weapons, there's so much more story that you're getting, there's so many more locations that are just as iconic as the ones in the base game.
Yeah, and not just like new weapons that are just a cool new sword, like that totally changed the way you play the game. Like you can absolutely play as like a ranged a knife thrower now, or you can do punch people with your fists now as well. And I also like how they brought a feeling of almost like a Sekiro into this game with just how some of the enemies move. There are some enemies that are just very fluid in how they move in this game, like the monks or one of the bosses comes to mind particularly. That was really good. And I'm just like, man, this feels like a boss from Sekiro, and it's so much more difficult to, I think, play the game the same way against those bosses, because really you can't. You have to learn how to play the game in a different way to battle those enemies effectively. Yeah. So yeah, additive, changing things up, adding new things and ideas and challenging the player in a different way.
Yeah, which is surprising that they still had any depth to plumb there. Elden Ring's just such a large game that I would expected like, oh, we've fought all the people that we can fight and have this game still be fun. But no, yeah, like pulling in influences from Sekiro and sort of the more like frantic forms of combat where it's like you get one hit in every now and then.
Yeah.
Versus like the kind of larger, bigger hits that they were doing in Elden Ring. I think the base version, they did a lot of, or they brought in a lot of situations where the challenge was just, when is this person going to hit? Like I'm thinking of Margit specifically, of like that first fight where it's like, Margit does these huge wind-ups that take so long. And you're trained as somebody who has been playing Dark Souls for so long that like there is a certain rhythm to when you expect someone to hit. And in Elden Ring, I think a lot of it was shaking you out of that and being like, this person's genuinely going to wind up for like 3 full seconds before they hit you.
Yeah.
To kind of like just shake you out of that rhythm a little bit. And I think that this one's also doing that, where it's so smart that the monk is the first person that attacks you, because he like launches in your direction so fast and then just is like horrible in how quickly he is attacking you immediately.
Yeah, it's like all around you, he's attacking you from behind and like hitting you because you're like, your guard isn't even working, your shield if you have one.
Yeah, so it's immediately calling its shot of like, hey, the shit that you learned out there is not how we fight here. You're gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah, welcome to the Shadow Realm, motherfucker.
Yes. So I like it's really great. I'm really, really enjoying it so far. It is more Elden Ring, which is both your and my game of the year of 2022. And
yes,
it's more of that.
Are you rocking with a new weapon nowadays?
No, we were talking about this a little bit prior to pod. I didn't do my homework good enough for this DLC. I like booted up my main dude and he had just started a new game plus, and I was like, I can't, because you have to beat Moog, who is like pretty deep into the game.
Yeah.
I had started another character a couple of weeks ago just to get more acquainted with the game again. They hadn't even beaten Godric yet. I was like just past Margit. And so I was like, that's also very, very far from being ready to fight Moog. But hey, who's this guy? It's Junthor. He's my caster build that I had done, which I had played like right after I had beaten the game. And so he was pretty high level and had ran through a lot of the base game already. And so I was like, all right, well, I hadn't beaten Moog yet, but maybe that's a good way to get back into this game, is like sharpen my teeth a little bit, get my item level up, get my actual level up, go back to that one cliff in the Mogwin Palace where you can shoot that bird that runs off the cliff.
Them birds.
It still works. I'm very happy that I didn't take that out, because
got a farm.
Yeah, I got to take at least half an hour to go up there and just, get high level enough. Because I think I was like level 110 or something when I beat Moog, which is like not low level, but I was definitely getting my ass kicked when I walked into the Shadow Realm.
Yes.
So no, he's this dude is just a caster, and I'm like, I kind of don't want to fuck with the formula too much, because if I have to learn like a whole new system, or go back to Renala and be like, all right, how do I upgrade this weapon enough to get it to the point where I'm ready again? It's like I'm just gonna keep using my fucking glintstone comets and shooting people from really far away. It's fine. And I've mostly figured out the game again. Like I've gotten back into the swing of like how to fight and how to, be patient and shoot glintstone when you can and then run away and all that sort of shit. So it's also a pretty good build. Like I feel like the first time I did it, like probably everybody, like my build was very inefficient and I wasn't like scaling everything in the right way.
Yeah.
But this one I'm sure I was just running off of a guide of like boost your int up to 70 and then kind of worry about everything else after that.
Yeah.
But I'm very much a glass cannon. I cannot take very many hits.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm using whatever staff I had before.
Love it.
Shooting that Renala full moon or whatever the
get
attack
that full
is.
Moon blast.
Turn into the moon and then shoot it at somebody.
You're probably going to get some nice new spells.
Yeah, I think there's a few more. I haven't found any in the DLC yet that I'm like, that's definitely one I can use. I found a couple of like faith attacks, but nothing int based yet, but I'm sure there's something out there waiting for me.
Oh, there is.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So I've just been powering through it because I'm level 180. So I'm just like,
oh yeah, I'm sure it's
the king is here, baby. Bobby is back.
Yeah, hell yeah. I wouldn't say it's like, it's definitely challenging, but I haven't run into situations where I'm like totally getting steamrolled. It's just kind of standard Elden Ring stuff of like, well, I need to go fight that guy again or whatever.
Yeah, there's still been some instances where I'm just like, I just got my ass handed to me. Because it's like, even if you're high level, if you're not paying attention or you just like stop like thinking hard for a second, they're just going to demolish you in like 3 or 4 hits anyways.
Yes. Yeah. It was fun. I went back to, there was just like some spell that I needed, which was like underneath Raya Lucaria College or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I went through one of the dungeons and also realized like, this is what being over leveled feels like. Because I went in there and just like wiped the floor with these guys to get to the end of the boss. And I was like, okay, this is what being over leveled would feel like. And the DLC is not that. Right? Like you are very clearly supposed to feel like you are getting your ass kicked a lot, which is fine. I think that that's good.
Builds character.
Yeah, it does. What's the, I ran into one of these bosses.
The Lion Dancer?
I think that's him.
The one that's at the top of the castle, and then you go up to the bit like where the shadow tree is blocking the entrance afterwards.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. I got there and he just absolutely demolished me, and I was like, I think I need to come back later. That's
the one I was thinking about. That was moves like a Sekiro boss. I'm just like, I cannot definitely tell where you're coming at me from at all.
So yeah, I put him on hold. I'm like, I don't think I'm actually like ready to go with him yet. Maybe he's one of the first ones you're supposed to be, but I sure as fuck didn't. Rolana, no problem. Beat her ass. No issues there.
Great. Yeah. She was a cool one though.
Yeah, she was cool as hell.
I always loved the fire. The 2 swords. She had like a fire sword and a intelligence sword, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Ice.
Yeah. Reminded me of, there's like a boss kind of similar to her in the...
Dark Souls 3.
In Dark Souls 3, but I was thinking of the Old Hunters, the DLC boss too, which is like brutal. One of those bosses, it's like you fight at the top of a clock tower and it's just so challenging.
Gotcha.
I didn't spend nearly as much time. And I think just because like Elden Ring has more options for like, you can use your mimic tier and you can kind of skirt around the edges and figure it out. But like the Bloodborne one was like, sorry, dog, you got to beat her. That's just the only way to
I have the Old Hunters. I should play through that one.
It's good. I think if I remember correctly, you can't just go there. I think it's like this, where it's like you have to get to a certain point in the game. Mm-hmm. But it is just like amazing. The visual design there. It's like even more Lovecrafty in some spots than the base version of Bloodborne. And you get to fight the Orphan of Kos, which is like so challenging. It's so hard. Just a screeching monster. He loves to scream. Love it.
It's a good time.
Yeah, but it's a good DLC. I like that one a lot too. God, what else? Do you have any other feelings about the Erdtree?
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
It's great. It's really good.
It's very good.
It's so much fun to explore, and there's so many things that I want to still explore in there. Mm-hmm. And I've been playing it quite a bit.
I know, me too.
Yeah, it's really good.
So hey, if you're interested, it's out there. It's available. It's good. Mm-hmm. Well, how about I say something that's fueling my sense of optimism, David?
Please.
It is specifically this interactive map that Polygon has published about Shadow of the Erdtree.
What is the interactive map?
It's just a map of the DLC area, and it's like, hey, here's where some stuff is.
Oh, I can't look. Don't show me.
It's not like it's just essentially map markers. And they're not extremely descriptive. Like, they're just kind of on the map to the point where sometimes I look at them like, wait, how do I actually get there? Mm-hmm. But it's been really useful for stuff for like, if I've been to a place and I'm like, let me just check to make sure I didn't miss something there, which is mostly what I'm using it for. Because like, I just hate to miss one of the skag tree fragments or whatever, one of the skibbity toilet fragments, because like those are pretty imperative, and you're not just going to like get them, like you do have to find them specifically.
They're just laying around.
They are laying around, and usually I will find them just by kind of exploring, but I kind of use it as a way to be like, let me make sure I actually got all that, because the game will get considerably more normal if you get more and more of them. So I've mostly just been using it for that, but also just like, God, it's so nice to be able to use it and not have to go to fucking Fextra Life. But the Polygon one works
great. Love Polygon.
Yeah. Thank you, Polygon. Shouts out Chris Plant. David, do you have anything fueling your sense of optimism?
Yes, it is dog.
It is dog. It is dog.
Behold dog.
Behold
dog. Oh dog. Praise dog. There is this weirdness around the like Elden Ring, and I think generally these FromSoft communities where the way that people interact with each other always seems like it's in good faith. I think because the game is just so brutal oftentimes that people are like, I'm kind of miserable and everyone else is kind of miserable with me, so I might as well just like make a couple jokes that we're in this together. I just find it kind of wholesome that people just love this meme of these turtles are dogs. Yeah, it's just pleasant. It's better than someone telling me fingers butthole, which also is funny sometimes.
It's funny.
It can be funny. It can be funny. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. But even like when people tell you, oh, go jump off through here, and then someone's like, no, there's a liar. I'm just like, oh, wow, this is great. These people,
I know. Yeah.
Like, it just feels so much more welcoming in that way. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I do too. The community is very strange with this game because I feel like in the other Dark Souls games, usually my experience of playing with other people is just like getting invaded and getting my ass kicked.
Yes.
Whereas like this one's, I feel like the messages are so frequent and varied that like you can kind of have a good time with somebody just like making a joke or something like that.
Yeah.
I climbed up a very long ladder today, and at the top of it said snake. Didn't expect snake. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, this is so good.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. There is a weird amount of camaraderie that you have with these other freaks who are on their journey too.
Their masochistic Erdtree journey. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All the edging jokes are very funny right now because that like wasn't in the vernacular.
That wasn't in the first one.
No, it's like that word was there, but the vernacular to use that wasn't present.
I want to go home and then edge. Like, are you saying what I think you're saying, sir? What is going on here?
Yeah. It's ridiculous and over the top, but like it always provides like, I'm just like, oh my God, I've gotten my ass kicked. I'm running back to a boss the 5th time and someone says Fortnite and I'm like, that's good. That's funny. I'm into this.
There's a lot of Fortnites around.
A lot of Fortnite. I also appreciate it when somebody, like you come up to a vista and somebody's just like, behold Elden Ring or something like that. And it's just like appreciation for the game. I'm like, this is great too. This is also beautiful. Very good. Yeah.
I like when I go up to a cliff and right at the edge, there's someone who says, Edge, Lord.
So good.
It's good.
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody also put a message like that around one of the NPCs that's in the Shadow of the Erdtree right now, which is like really funny because one of them is just like so serious and intense.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciate that they added that in there too. It's good.
Love it.
Fun. Anyway, do you want to move on to our main thing, David?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. Welcome to Good Games. It's a segment where we talk about the okayest games of yesteryear and gush all the things that we love about them. You'll notice from the title of this episode that we're covering another Metal Gear game.
Yes.
This one we are not doing a big bonus episode for.
No, we are not.
This is one of the kind of non-canonical, truly other Metal Gear games.
The redheaded stepchild of the Metal Gear universe.
Yes. We'd gotten suggested this game from a person named Sam who said, it's a Metal Gear turn-based card tactical RPG. That covers every video game podtimism buzzword, which I agree with.
Yes, that's very true.
That's us. You got it. Had you played Metal Gear Acid before, David?
I had not. This was a PSP era game, and that was my no card games allowed era as well. So similar to why I did not play Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories.
Or Chain of Memories. Yeah, true. Yeah, I had, but I think I had the very bad take that this game sucked when I was younger. I was so in on Metal Gear at the time that I was just like, I wanted regular Metal Gear on my PSP.
Yes. Yeah. You'd get that eventually.
You did get that eventually, but I think that it's such a departure from the base game that at the time I was like, dude, what the fuck is this? I don't want to use cards to control Snake. I just want to control Snake.
I just want to be the Snake.
It's also, and this doesn't hurt in hindsight as much as it kind of did for me in the moment of like, it came out after MGS3 and is sort of taking after this like kind of MGS1, MGS2 era visual design. And so it sort of felt almost like leftovers in a little bit. Like it wasn't a distinct identity unto itself. And so I was like, it felt kind of an inferior, almost not imitation, but just like, this isn't the game that I wanted it to be, you know?
Gotcha. It was giving you the visual cues of this is the game I want, but then it was not the game you were wanting.
Sort of. It just felt kind of like not reused assets, but like territory that we have already been to.
Already trodden.
And so like, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do that so much. However, I think in 2024, the problem of expectations is not nearly as bad as it was like right when this game came out.
Absolutely.
But let me hit you with a few hot stats before we get into it, David.
Please.
Hot stats.
So this Metal Gear Acid came out in North America March 24th of 2005, which is like later than I remembered it being. Again, this is after MGS3 came out. So it's like kind of a little bit later than I expected because it feels older.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was also made by Konami. No surprise there. And Kojima helped produce this one, but it's a fairly different group of folks working on this game than the kind of like mainline Metal Gear Solid stuff. And so like, I think you feel that in the way that it's kind of built. Obviously the mechanics of it are very different, but just like the story is pretty different. The way it's told is all pretty different. And so like you do get a different experience in a Metal Gear Solid through somebody else's eyes, which like I don't hate. It is different. It is a different thing than a Hideo Kojima Metal Gear, but like, not that bad, right? It's just a different experence of what this game is like.
On it.
Yeah,
it definitely gets wacky. They definitely
does.
They definitely took inspiration from the wackiness and the twists and turns that a typical Metal Gear game takes. So they did well in that regard.
Yeah, it's not like you're longing for the super weird shit. It's here too.
Yeah.
Let me see. I do have a review from Jeux Video, an outlet out of France, and they reviewed Metal Gear Acid. I took their review and ran it through Google Translate a number of times, eventually arriving back out in English to mangle it up and get sort of an artist's interpretation of what they're saying, which I will read for you now, David.
Okay, let's hear it.
The results are mixed with cast iron. Despite high levels with writing, the game is plagued by insects, lag, lack of visibility, and fake intelligence. All in all, it's a work of progress, albeit finished, that makes a big difference between regular and long-term schedules. The game is fun and challenging, and both modes are fun, if not original. I expect the effort to change dramatically with the second fused metal. And they gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was some real Joe Video review
this is
there.
Joe Core. Yeah.
They were all over the place with it. Multiple contradictions. Man.
I love it when they say just the opposite shit right next to each other.
Unfinished, but complete.
Yes. So good. Really, really good. Yeah. Another banger by Joe Video. Shouts out. David, could you tell me what Metal Gear Acid is?
Metal Gear Acid is a video game set in the Metal Gear Solid universe, starring Solid Snake. It is a tactics, card-based tactic stealth RPG game. Yes. So you are Solid Snake and you sneak around levels, going a certain number of block distances, taking turns with other characters on the screen, the other enemies on the screen, I should say. And then you have different cards that you shuffle through in your deck that allow you to do different things. Like you can go into evasion mode, or you can equip a gun, or you can throw a grenade or lay a claymore and then walk away. You can sneak around. You can go up against a wall and knock. All the things you can really do in a regular Metal Gear game, they have really actually faithfully brought into this game, which was pretty impressive that they kind of covered all their bases, it felt like, as far as like things Snake can do. Except maybe I didn't really see a role in this, but you can't really have that feel good maybe in this type of game. But yeah, and you go through and the story is wacky, and you just do different little levels where you have to sneak through an area or fight a boss and rinse and repeat. Yeah, you got it. What did you think about this game? How did you feel about it? I enjoyed it in theory. Okay, yeah. I think I might still be in your middle school era of like, I just kind of want a Metal Gear game. Yeah, I appreciate what they're doing, and I think that they have made a very interesting and compelling system. Game kicked my ass. It's quite hard. It is a hard game. It does not pull its punches. It really wants you and expects you to learn quickly on the fly, because it's not like a regular Metal Gear game where if you trip the alarm, it's just kind of an easy thing to run away, hide somewhere, and you're good. Yeah. It is like, no, I've been out in the open for 3 turns just getting blasted by these dudes because I just don't have like a strong movement card to get out of here. And there's nowhere. Yeah. And since it's a PSP game, there aren't really like underground areas where I can just go and sneak away to and hide, at least not readily or easily, right? The stealth becomes so much more important in this one, and the stealth has always been the thing I am worst at in a Metal Gear game. So I am impressed by the system that they have made, and I think it works well. It's just very hard, and you have to be really, I think, dedicated, or not dedicated, but like really wanting intrinsically to play this game and see how it shakes out to get through it and make it work for you. And like also just have an intrinsic love for card battlers. And like, I like card battling games, but I also, I feel like I need them to be like a really good one. And I think this one is good, but it's not as accessible as other ones have become over time. And I think maybe that was my main gripe with card battling games in the beginning, was that they were very, I wouldn't say very, but a lot of them were inaccessible to newcomers, right?
Yeah.
Not so nowadays with like the boom that they have gone through in the last like 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Whereas this one definitely still has the trappings of an older card battling game with then the added difficulty of stealth on top of it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think I like my interpretation of those things is warmer than that, but the base interpretation is the same. Yeah. Of like, this is a very cool version of Metal Gear Solid in a card battler. Yeah. Like that's pretty neat. That's a cool way to do it. But also it does not hold your hand for a lot of it. And I kind of wanted it to more. And like again, not burying the lead. I like this game a lot, and I liked it a lot more than I did the first time I played it. But yeah, I think the thing that card games have figured out since this era of games is how to just slowly bring somebody into the fold who is not a card battler, or somebody who hasn't played Magic before, or like hasn't delved into whatever trading card game that they're interested in or anything like that. That, Slay the Spire requires very few previous interaction with other card games. Monster Train does not need you to have played other card or deck building roguelikes, know? And you're almost seeing us come back around the other end with some of the other card battlers, because they're like, well, these are really popular right now, so like let's just assume that you have some of that knowledge. But I think like part and parcel of why Slay the Spire was so popular is that it assumed none of that. It's just like, we're going to teach you how to play the game, and building a deck is just a part of the game. Like every end of a turn, you usually draft a card or something, and so like how you do that and the learning of that is the part of the experience. But this, and even Chain of Memories to some extent, like they want you to study the game and figure out how to make a balanced deck in it, rather than like assuming that you don't know how to do that, and then just kind of slowly drip feeding you like, here's how to do this one thing, or here's how to like add another thing, or give you another attack or anything like that. And I think that's why also like roguelikes are such a harmonious partner for deck building games, because you can totally fuck it up and you will be done, and you will see, well, that didn't work. And then you try something else, and you try it again. You go back to zero and see like what was working and what didn't. Whereas like these kind of games, and this one specifically, it doesn't do that. Like you just have to kind of do trial and error with these missions to be like, why isn't my deck working as well as I want it to? Or like, what didn't actually work well here? Which I think is a more challenging experience. That is more work for the player. And I think once you get it, this game is very good. But it takes some effort to like figure out how to play it and like see what is like a good move versus a bad move, or any of that stuff. And so like it requires a lot of upfront work. But I think like if you can imagine what an onboarding experience looks like for this game in 2024, I think it would be a really cool game. Yeah, I agree. There's this game that I played. I don't even know if I brought it to the show at some point, but there's a game I played called Fights in Tight Spaces that came out a couple of years ago. And it is like, it feels pretty similar in hindsight to Metal Gear Acid, of like, you are dropped into a 3D space and you have to like beat people up with just, a deck of cards. And a lot of it is, positioning yourself. So it's kind of into the breach in that way too, of like making sure that you can see the other people's intentions. And then if you maybe push somebody into somebody else and they, can do this, and then you throw somebody off this edge over here, how does that affect the rest of the battle? And you can see similar stuff in Metal Gear Acid, where like positioning plays a very big role in this game. And like the system that they have where every card can be used as a movement card, I think that's smart, but it also kind of conflicts. It helps and hurts the game. Absolutely. Yeah, because you don't know what you want essentially at the beginning. Like, what cards can I safely burn to get through this? Do I burn my guns? Do I burn like my evasion cards? Because especially with stealth games in general, you don't know how punishing being spotted is going to be. Yes. Right? Yeah. This game isn't terrible with it, because it does give you like, I think, a turn to take out whoever, a turn or two to take out whoever is
phoning the
enemy or the reinforcements. Yeah.
So if you have like something like ready to go, like in your back pocket, shouldn't be too much of a problem. But it's being able to predict and know what you want to have on you just in case.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It makes sort of the planning of a fight a lot harder. Yeah. And so like, and I understand why they did it, because they wouldn't want to tie movement to a card necessarily, because then you get into these situations where if you have balanced your deck incorrectly and you only have movement cards, or you have no movement cards in your hands, and suddenly it feels like, God, what am I going to do here? Yeah. And so to allow you to burn any of them for movement, I think is smart. It allows you to keep moving whenever you need to. But it also like, you also have to kind of balance in 3 dimensions of like, also, how do I make sure that I have enough like guns in my deck to attack and the rations to heal myself and stuff like that. And so like, I sort of suspect that if this game was made today, that they may separate those 2 things. That's what Bytes and Tight Spaces does, is that like you have movement cards, but a lot of your other cards also move you for other reasons, right? Like you might be able to like grab somebody in front of you and swap positions with them. So it's like, it's another form of movement, but not necessarily a strictly run over their card. And so like, I also agree with you. In theory, this game is amazing, right? Like it's such a cool way to represent this genre. And I think I, after having played so many card games, can appreciate it a lot more than I could then. But I think a lot of me also yearns for like, God, what does the perfect version of this game look like? Because it's not that far.
No, it's not. Like, it's close.
It's pretty close, yeah.
Looking at the context of this game too, and I think is this maybe relevant just for how I've played Metal Gear Solid recently, and then how it also came out when it was released, and that this game for both of us now twice has followed Metal Gear Solid 3, and it's not to say like, oh, Metal Gear Solid 3 is like so much better or anything like that, but Metal Gear Solid 3 just offers you, like we were talking about, it almost like a proto-immersive sim experience where you have so many different ways to tackle a situation. Whereas this one, the way you tackle a situation is you still have options, but they're all very tied to stealth. And I think that's also
it's pretty defined what you can do.
Yeah, it's defined what you can do, and there's different things you can do, but it's all within this one umbrella of stealth, which I think is also something that was, and I shouldn't have gone into it expecting like, comparing it to MGS3, but it was just fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was also something that was not a negative, but just kind of was a little jarring after having that experience recently with a Metal Gear game.
Yeah, I think that like Metal Gear games, especially in the sneaking, it offers you a lot of opportunities to correct a decision that you have made with like, oh, I shouldn't be in this spot. This is actually not where I want to fight. Or like if you get caught, there's usually a lot of options with how to deal with that, or just like architecturally and like geographically, there's a lot of ways to approach any given situation, especially in 3 because you're in the forest, but like it offers you so many avenues to approach something. Whereas like, yeah, you're correct. This one has a few, and a lot of the time it is fight is the option. Or just like not fight someone, like just run around them. But it does feel more limited than what you could do in 3. Or, I don't know that you can really like knock people out with CQC in this one in the same way that you could in 3.
No, it's all just damage, I think.
Yes, yeah, and so like it's tough because it's burdened with just the expectations of the series, which like at this point is already legendary. Like. This came out after 3, and so like people have ideas about what Metal Gear Solid is mechanically. And I think that that's like almost not a good thing to bring into this, because I think it's a good game, but I wouldn't say it's an amazing Metal Gear Solid game. It's just like a good stealth game.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't necessarily need the Metal Gear Solid facade,
like moniker.
It doesn't need that styling. It could have been any stealth game, and I think it would have been maybe better for it, because then you don't have the expectations of what a Metal Gear Solid game is. But at the same time, I think that by having the Metal Gear name attached to it created this crazy fucking story that
oh my God, yeah, absolutely bananas.
that they concocted with this, which was insane. I was reading the wiki for it because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get through this whole game. It's a long game, by the way.
And
it was so confused. So confusing.
Absolutely
they nailed that with a Metal Gear game for sure.
Yeah, it's like some high level shit. There's like a plane that gets hijacked by 2 dolls that are like being telekinetically controlled, which is great immediately. That's amazing. There is a section where like oh my God, what even happens? It's like Snake is trying to save these two scientists. And at some point he gets implanted with like false memories of being one of those scientists.
Yeah, I think they told him, you look the same as that guy. That guy is you. And that they were saying that he was the researcher who did all these terrible things, I think, to these kids, like abducted them and did experiments on them. And that someone had falsely implanted memories of him being Solid Snake afterwards to like make him forget for some reason.
Yes, yeah.
But in reality, it was the other way around.
Yes, yeah. And I think like, listen, spoilers for this game, which is not canonical. This is not in the canon of Metal Gear. I think Snake dies at the end of this game.
Heavily implied.
Like you see him kind of like washed up on shore, despite the fact that like he gets out, I think, at the end of the game. Like I didn't watch the cutscene, so I was just reading about this, but what they said is that like, I think he's dead. I think he's dead in the end of this one.
Was it Snake or was it one of the scientist guys who got out?
Yeah, you don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. But in Metal Gear Acid 2, I'm pretty sure it's implied that the Snake in that one is not the same guy. It's a different dude.
So they called it acid because you need to be like on acid to understand this story, right? To make it make sense.
There were 3 reasons they gave as to why it was called Metal Gear Acid.
Oh, really?
Let me see. Yeah, there was actually reasoning for it. I think the first one was that acid is able to melt through metal and like solids. So like it's just supposed to be like, hey, we're doing a different thing than what the base game is.
Okay.
The second reference is to vecunorium bromide, the chemical used by Elise and Francis to hijack the flight. Okay.
Of course.
Acid there. The third stated is to be an acronym for Active Command Intelligence Duel, in reference to the game's mixture of turn-based with card-based strategy. So
great.
It's also an anagram. It's just bananas. Like, again, despite the fact that Hideo's not here the whole time, this game is wacky in ways that feels like it's a normal canonical version of this game. Yes, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I like, honestly, the story was pretty fun. I liked reading about it and seeing what's going on in here. I think it takes place in 2016, which is a weird called shot from Hideo that like, I don't know, maybe that year might suck. And also it's bizarre because like, I'm pretty sure that 4 takes place after this, like in that canonical version of Metal Gear Solid. And Snake looks very different in this game compared to where he was at in Metal Gear Solid 4. Like in 4, he's, old Snake by that point.
But it's not the same Snake though. This is totally different.
Different guy. Yeah. It's, oh God, it's so bizarre in a way that I kind of like. Like, remember what I was saying, that my hope for Metal Gear Solid 3 would be to like place it in almost a different timeline and like have it be kind of a reference. That's almost what this game is, with sort of the bizarre shit that's going on, in that like the story that Metal Gear continues to kind of like hammer on a lot of the time are these like cycles of conflict that come up pretty often. And I appreciate that this game is almost saying like there will always be another Snake to do this, right? Like just somebody who's being kind of like used by the government to do what they need him to do, which like that's pretty good. I think that's like kind of fun and almost works as a canonical entry by being non-canonical.
Sure.
Like because it is so out there and wacky, it kind of works as like support for the idea that even not in the main canonical story, this still happens.
There's
like
always a Royal Campbell. There's always a Snake.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We're getting into the BioShock Infinite of it all. But I think that like in this case, it does kind of work. I think that it's fun. This isn't canon, so I don't think you can really analyze it in the same breath as the rest of the games, but I do think it's like it's in line, and I think it works still.
Yeah, absolutely.
The character designs are all very bizarre. Snake is like, again, it seems like he's a different dude, but he's got this like kind of cool haircut where he's got a bunch of it on one side and just pulls it over to one side of his head. I think it looks pretty sick, actually. And I can never keep track of the names. There's a lot of people in here, but like kind of your main partner in a lot of this.
Teleco?
I think her name is, Teleco. Her character design is absolutely unhinged. Just throwing it back in every position she's in. I have no idea why they decided to, well, I do know why, but like the character design is very bizarre. I was like, why does she gotta be standing like that at all times? But also at the same time, like if you don't look at the weird sexualization stuff, I think her character art is also very cool. Like just her person is pretty neat. And so like appreciate that they're bringing the same sort of like intensity to the characters that they're designing in these games.
Yeah. And I was just going to say about the character art in particular is that it definitely seems like a departure from the typical art in a Metal Gear game. It seems like more like watercolory in a way, as opposed to before it's more like lines and shadows, like very slicey almost. Whereas this is more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It is more
like illustrated, I guess.
Illustrated. It's more, it doesn't have as defined of boundaries sometimes, at least on the cover art for the game, where the two characters are there. Watercolory. Things bleed a little bit more. Yeah. It's just interesting how they decided to do it differently for this one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like all Metal Gear stuff, like I think the art is a high point.
It is still very good, yes.
Yeah.
Were her buns just out the whole time?
I think so.
Those were
I think
pants.
her butt's just like, I also thought they were pants. No, I think it's butt cheeks. I think she's wearing chaps for a lot of this. It's a little wild. It's a little nuts.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah. Yoji Shinkawa was not credited on Metal Gear Acid, so I don't know that he was particularly contributing. But it's still kind of like, it's in line. Like, it looks like these things exist in a similar universe. But yeah, some of the character choices there are interesting. Yeah. What else about this game? What else do you feel about it?
Story is bananas. The gameplay, I think, really faithfully tried to make it a Metal Gear game with the restrictions of a PSP. I think they did a commendable job. I think that like, what you were saying is like it's so close to being there by like a modern standard of a card battling game. And I do like how they're adding like a 3D action realm to a card battling game, which I haven't seen too often, even by today's standards, where you're really like positioning and doing things. It almost makes it feel kind of like a board game in a way.
Yes, yeah.
Or like a physical piece you are moving around just digitally instead of on a board, right? So I'd be curious to see this sort of style resurrected and expanded upon and refined, and see what game that could be, and just make it a little bit more accessible. But I think it's a very interesting game. I don't know if it hit for me quite as much as it did. It sounded like for you. Sound like you really enjoyed this one. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, this is the chase game.
Yes, yeah.
But I did enjoy it, and I do appreciate it. I guess is really where I come from. I really appreciate what this game does. Yeah. Whereas I would not say I'd necessarily really enjoy playing it, because it is just difficult, and I kind of want to play Metal Gear differently than what this wants me to do.
Yeah, it definitely came out in a time where I think companies were a little less precious with like lending out IP. You know, that they were like, I don't know, fuck it, try and make a tactics game with this game, or a card battler or whatever. But I would have a hard time seeing Konami doing something like that now, you know? And like, not just Konami. I think most companies would be like, oh, that seems kind of risky. That seems like a weird
Well, they made Metal Gear Survive.
They did, and that was maybe a very bad choice. But I suspect that was not a game design problem, but more of a money problem, where they're like, let's just put this out and let's make a lot of money, right? That's how it works. I feel like you see a lot of games, or a lot of weirdly, Metal Slug is much more open with their IP in this way. Like Metal Slug Tactics, or I don't even know if that game is out yet, but that one's like eventually coming out. Like Metal Slug, like Idle tower defense game that came out recently during the Nintendo Direct. Like they seem to be much more okay with like, I don't know, let's try it in this genre and see if that happens. Whereas like, I just don't know if you see that quite as much with especially the big franchises. And it might just be possible that like in 2005, Konami hadn't quite caught on to the fact yet that like this is one of the biggest franchises we have. Because like I think 3 had come out like, I don't know if it was a full year before that, but enough time to maybe, you know, the executives hadn't seen like, this is the most precious shit we have. I'm sure they did, but just like, I don't know if it was the same level as when it was Metal Gear Solid 5 and they're all like, we have to make the best game of all time. Also, Hideo, fuck off. So it's interesting to see like them being a little bit less precious here. And I also think that like Nintendo is kind of coming around the other side of this too, where for a little while you saw this with like the ideology that they had in Origami King, where they're like, no new people, no new characters. Like it only has to be the regular versions of bombs and shit like that. No new friends. We don't like new friends. But they seem to be maybe coming around the other end of that, of like they put out the remake of Thousand Year Door, which I think is kind of signaling like, we know that you guys like this game and maybe we're okay with it too if it makes makes us some money, and then the Mario and Luigi Brotherhood like stepping back out to say like, let's maybe try something out with these people and the Zelda game and all that sort of shit. Like there is a little bit more of them tentatively stepping their toes back into like, what if we just made a couple of freaks, what if just a couple of weirdos in here?
Sorry, you said Mario and Luigi Brotherhood, and then I just pictured Mario and Luigi in assassin's coats with the hidden blades.
Yep, wrong game. Brothership is the name. I know.
Of it. I'm not trying to dunk on you with that, but it was just a funny image came in my head.
It's that, and it's also them in Full Metal Alchemist. Ooh. I think I saw somebody draw that recently.
Yeah, definitely Luigi is Alphonse for sure.
Yeah,
easily. I don't know. You can make that happen. You could remake Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood with all Nintendo characters.
We need to do the dark arts to bring back our mom. I hope I don't lose a leg.
Do they ever show their parents in that show? Would you have to create like a Mario and Luigi parent at that point?
Parent, yeah. I mean, they're in the movie, so you can just use those.
They're in the movie.
This is the Chris Pratt multiverse.
This is Chris
of
Pratt
Mario.
And Charlie Day as Edward and Alphonse Elric.
Oh my God. Listen, if I have to pay the price of Chris Pratt being in there, I will accept it if I get Charlie Day in Super Mario Brothers Brotherhood.
Chris Pratt as Mario as Edward Elric.
Yes, yeah. I would love Charlie Day as Alphonse. That would be really, really good.
Mean, it really checks out, I think.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, man.
Make it happen, Nintendo.
Yeah. I'll call them up and see what they think. Thank you, Sam, for suggesting this game. It was a great excuse to play this because I always say like I should play Metal Gear Acid again, but until I have like a deadline for it, I usually don't. So I was happy to kind of return to this one.
Yeah, it was fun. I did enjoy my time with it. Kicked my ass, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, totally. Be interested to play Metal Gear Acid 2. I would love to see if that's any better. I feel like that one was received a little bit better, but I don't know that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Played on a different cast.
Played on a different cast, yeah. Oh, shouts out to them having references to Zone of the Enders in this one too. Zone of the Enders fucking rules, and I want it to exist in more conversations. But they got cards for the Jehudi in this one, which was very cool. The Jehudi.
Jehudi and the Blowfish?
Yes, yeah. The gigantic mech that was really popular in, oh God, when was Hootie and the Blowfish popular?
The 90s?
That's what I would think too, but I'm not positive. Mid-90s? Yeah, I think you're right. Formed in 1986, so yeah, surely they were popular in the 90s. But yeah, it was the gigantic mech that was putting out, I don't know, Only Want to Be With You in the 90s.
If you would like to interact with the podcast more, you can go to our website, podtimism.com. On there, you can listen to episodes. You can see past episode art. You can search to see what games we have talked about in the past. And, of course, you can suggest games for us to do in the future if you want us to play anything that you would want to hear our opinions on. So, go on over there. Also, on that website, there is a link to our Discord. We are part of the Worst Garbage Podcast Network. So, come on over and talk to some other podheads. It's a good time in there.
Mm-hmm. It was a good time. Thanks for everybody also hanging out in there and chatting. It's also always fun to see what everybody's doing. Mm-hmm. One of the listeners, I hope it's okay if I shout you out, Toby, but she's been playing through a bunch of Tingle video games from the Zelda games, posting her experience in there. A mixed bag, I will say. Apparently Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love was a little bit of a problematic fave, if you will.
Tingle's what now?
Tingle's Balloon Trip of Love.
This sounds like a reality show.
Yes, no, it absolutely does. I think probably pretty similar ethics as well in here.
Yeah.
But she'd suggested that we play one of the other Tingle's Rosy Rupee Land as well, so we may be getting there. But just you can expect that, some shit posts from us at some point in there. It's a good time, so come hang out.
Thank you, Scott Wilkinson, for our podcast art. It's great.
Yeah.
You can go and see if her commissions are open or see her other art at co-fi.com/humblegoat.
Yeah.
And thank you, listener, for being here. There's so many different things that you could do with your time, and you choose to spend it with us, listening to us talk about silly things and video games. And it's pretty great. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your presence.
Mm-hmm. Chase, do you have anything, or not anything, feeling your podtimism, do you have any video game wisdom for us this week?
Yeah. I think that everybody should try to make a tactics card RPG. I think that every IP should get one chance. Every IP should get one. I would like, I don't know, the Star Wars tactical card game.
What?
I would like, hey, Metal Slug. I mean, I guess Metal Slug Tactics is coming out, but like, Give me a card game too.
What would be the most surprising game for you to see, or IP for you to see, like, just like nail the tactics, the card tactics genre?
Maybe like Frasier or something like that.
Frasier card tactics? I play Eddie the dog. You've activated my Niles card.
You've activated my Niles card.
Blue-eyed white Niles.
Yeah, I need all 5 pieces of Exodia, the Frasier crane, to win the game.
All 5 pieces of Frasier crane. Left hand of the forbidden one.
The Frasodia is...
He just has his microphone and just like yells into it. Brings out some wine, starts reviewing it immediately.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty surprised if they nailed that one.
Frasier card tactics. I'd play it. My parents are big
I would
Frasier
also
heads.
play it. Yeah, I remember seeing that on at your house fairly frequently. They both your parents seem like real Frasier heads.
Oh, you know, the way you feel about Friends, I feel about Frasier.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
I get that same sense of just like, my life is wasting away as I watch this show. What am I doing?
Oh, baby, I hear the music calling.
I'll salad is scrambled eggs.
But it's pitched down and scary.
Oh, baby, don't you know that I vote for Republicans?
I know, it's such a bummer that Kelsey Grammer's kind of a turd.
Baby, don't you know that I'm a MAGA Republican?
I think Kelsey Grammer should be Exodia. Definitely the forbidden one.
Definitely forbidden one. I think just call him the forbidden one. All right, Frasier, make it happen.
Well, yeah.
Listen to me, whoever owns Frasier's IP. Is it Kelsey Grammer? I don't know. NBC?
Who knows, man?
It's public domain now.
Yeah, I think technically the universe owns it now. It is a part of the ether that weaves through all of us. Mm-hmm. I'm actually building a green moose deck right now. It's really got some high cards at the end of the energy
Are
curve.
you just like searching Frasier terms right now? Just like my green moose deck.
I'm mostly just talking about Magic the Gathering and substituting characters from Frasier.
There you go. I got a really good new terrain. It's Frasier's apartment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I fucked it up. I said Moose because that's the dog. His real name is Moose.
Oh.
On IMDb, it listed him as who plays Eddie. It's a dog named Moose.
Ah, you could do Mad Dog, who is like the sports personality on the talk radio station that Frasier works at.
I'm talking about Bulldog Briscoe.
Bulldog,
David?
that's it.
Yeah, the Bulldog decks are really OP right now, but I think the meta is going to shift back to being a Daphne Moon-centered meta after this. I'm so glad we're not in the
What were you going to say? Say it.
I was going to say, I'm so glad we're not living still in the Martin Crane meta. It was toxic and horrible for everyone.
It was bad. Marty.
Yeah. See you next week, Frasier Card Battlers.
See you next week, Frasier heads.
Bye.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.